Honey, if I ever ran into a town like Derry, I'm either gonna detour or just drive straight off a cliff. Okay. Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel review where we talk about all things television and film from today and yesteryear. So I wanted to come on here and do somewhat of a recap of Derry. Okay, the first half of the season. It's not a full recap. This is more of me giving my thoughts, but at the same time, kind of going over some of the things that have transpired. Okay, not in any particular order. And like I said, it won't be very detailed, but nonetheless, let's get to it. So, Lily is the main character, okay? She is in the center of all the foolery that is currently going on in the town of Derry, okay? She goes to Derry High School. She has a few friends, not many. And at the moment, I think she recently had got out of a mental institution. So, of course, once things start to transpire in Derry, honey, not only is Lily getting the side eye, but she also gets put back into Sing Sing. Okay. So here we have Will and his dad Leroy and his mom Charlotte. So Leroy, he's in the military. He gets there before his wife and son. He is there, thinking that since he's such a good soldier and he has all this military skills and brilliance, honey, that is the reason that he is there. Come to find out, he, amongst other soldiers, have been brought to Derry to try to trap Pennywise. Okay. So Charlotte and her son, they get there. We learn that Charlotte is a former school teacher. She is also a civil rights activist, and she is going to be using her activism, to pull some strings to try to get a innocent black man out of prison. The black man who is in prison, they are pinning all of the missing children's and the unalivings on him, which he absolutely had nothing to do with because he was laid up with an unseasoned woman. And of course, he cannot tell the police that he was with somebody's wife who also happens to be a white woman because he will be in more trouble than what he is now. So, Charlotte, she is going to be using her civil rights activism to get him out of prison. And I'm like, honey, you are in the town of Derry. When it comes to you having civil righteousness, it don't matter because Pennywise have none. Okay. And Will, he is going to be thrown in the middle of all the shenanigans once he starts to befriend some of the children in Derry.
Can you guys stop fighting?
We're not fighting.
We're talking. That's just how we talk.
Here we have Rose, and she is a native to Derry. Okay, not only is she Native American, but she's also native to the land there in Derry. She and her family, I guess they live on a reservation that is very sacred. Okay, but unfortunately, the military is going to start prodding in their area. And she gonna let them know that they don't need to do that. We also learned that Rose and the general who is responsible for having Leroy and his family move to Derry, that he and Rose have somewhat of a background, a little history from their childhood up until now, with each other as well as their interactions with Pennywise. Lily and her crew pull up on Ronnie. Ronnie is the young lady whose father is being accused of all of the missing children's unaliving. All right. Okay. Ronnie is also one of the last people to see Maddie, who Lily happens to be looking for. Maddie is Lily's friend. He is also the young man who we got to see in the movie theater where he was basically watching movies for free and was told that he needed to leave. Maddie comes from an abusive household, so I'm assuming that is why he would be hanging out at the movie theaters, just trying not to be at home with his parent. So he ends up hitchhiking Maddie. He ends up with this family that seems very pleasant, but after a while, we learned that that family was nobody but Pennywise. Okay, Pennywise was all up and through that car with that family, and unfortunately, Maddie is no longer. Lily, of course, she is not aware of that. She is just looking for, context clues as to where he is because at this point, she just assumes that he is missing. And since Ronnie, her dad was working at the movie theater and Ronnie was there with him as well, she is trying to find out from her where Maddie's last whereabouts was, possibly if she possibly knows where he went after he left the movie theater. And of course, Ronnie, she's a little dismissive, like, y'all get from over here, y'all ain't got a business over here. I'm not helping y'all, whatever. People trying to blame my dad for that boy missing, and my dad ain't got nothing to do with it. So, Lily and her friends, they proceed to walk off, and then one of the boys says something about a song. And so that makes Ronnie's ears perk up. And she's like, what did you just say? And, we get to see a moment where Lily is in the bathroom and she starts hearing singing coming from her drain, in the tub. And so, Ronnie, she decides to go ahead and help them. And she and the crew end up going to the movie theater when it's supposed to be closed. Okay. So this took me by surprise because I was not expecting for all of these kids to be unalive so quickly. Like, absolutely not. I was not expecting, not only was I not expecting it, but for it to have been done in front of Lily and Ronnie the way that it was. Like, Pennywise was not holding it back. He literally tore those kids up in that doggone movie theater. When I tell you, when that baby flew out of that projection screen, I was like, well, dang, he's still alive, because we already saw what he did in the car. Okay, he wreaked havoc all up in that car that Maddie was in. But I don't get what that fear of Maddie's is when it comes to the baby. So I'm wondering if we're going to get a little bit more background about that, because we already know how Pennywise, he knows a person's fear, right? He knows how to lure people in, he knows how to deceive them, but he also is very well aware of what they fear the most. So I'm still trying to figure out what that baby symbolizes in Maddie's life. Like, did he have a baby brother or sister and the dad just started mistreating him? Because again, we do know that Maddie was in a abusive household, but nonetheless, honey, poor Lily. Lily cannot catch a break, baby. And the fact that, like I said, it just took me by surprise that Ronnie and Lily were both able to actually see all of these things transpire. Like, but the way he, the way, the way he chopped them kids up in that doggone movie theater, I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So, baby, flash forward to when Lily goes to the grocery store. Okay. Mind you, Lily is doing her best to not be put back in a mental facility because, she don't want people to think that she's crazy. But honey, the Pennywise cornflakes took me out. When they showed these cornflake boxes of her friends, and they had a box with Maddie on it too, but I was like, the way this was so crazy, because I'm like, again, I was just not expecting it to just go all in like it did on these kids. But one thing about Stephen King novels and Stephen King adaptations, they have no problem unaliving children. Okay, like none whatsoever. But nonetheless, Lily is in the grocery store losing her doggone mind. Now, one of the things I love the most about the show, outside of the acting is really, really good, are the creatures. The creatures, monsters, whatever you want to call them, are phenomenal. When she was in the grocery store, when Lily started throwing down those pickle jars, honey, again, back to the pickle jar that was in her locker at the beginning of the show, honey, I'm like, well, she got a phobia against pickles. I don't know. But anyway, listen, the way that monster formed out of that pickle jar, seemingly as her father, was, oh my gosh, like I had to rewind this. I am a visual person. I love us. Oh my god, it was just such a, oh, it was so awesome to see how this creature formed out of the pickle jars. But baby, when she snapped out of whatever it was you want to call it, like I said, hallucination, what have you, when she snapped out of it and she saw the store clerk, the manager, staring down at her, he was like, have you lost your mind? I was like, she has it, but in a way, she kind of did. Poor Lily. I just felt sorry for her because she just could not catch a break. Okay. So I wanted to go back to Leroy for a second. Leroy has no clue what he has gotten himself and his family involved in. Okay. He is starting to see certain things, when he was on the plane with Dick here. And Dick, who seems to be some type of clairvoyant, some type of medium psychic, we get a little bit more about him, in the later episodes. I think episode 4 and 5, we started to get a little bit more background on on him and why he seemingly has these gifts. You know what I'm saying? As far as, like I said, him being clairvoyant or medium. But anyway, Leroy, he some certain things are starting to trickle down. Okay, like he's starting to see certain things when he was on the plane and he saw Dick pretty much just like walk like he was about to literally walk off the back of that helicopter. Um, it made his light bulb come on. Like, okay, what is going on? To the point where he had to ask the general, "What exactly are we looking for?" And when they ended up pulling up that car, I think it was like episode 1 or episode 2, when they ended up pulling that car up out of the mud with those skeleton remains in it, I assumed that that was the car that Maddie was in with that said family. Okay, I could be wrong, but we get a little inkling of them actually looking for Pennywise. And we also, like I said, we start to learn that Dick has had some type of interactions with Pennywise, because we already know, once again, if Pennywise can't get you as a child, he gonna get you as an adult. Okay, we've seen it in all the movies. He do not play. He gonna get you one way or another. And so, Leroy, he is trying to figure out exactly what is going on. And remember when he went fishing with his son, and his son, um, saw him at the bottom of the lake when Leroy actually went out to the car to get some bait, and he was trying to pull his son over, like, and he saw his son, pretty much about to drown. So he's starting to realize that certain things are going on, and unfortunately, he's a little too late. He's gonna have to stay and figure out what else is gonna happen in the party. Okay. Again, these creatures, these monsters, when I tell you the response of Ronnie when that creature was trying to suck her in, oh my God. I was like, baby, that's black. Okay, that's how we black folks is going to do it. You are no ma'am. We are going to fight you. We are going to fight, bite, whatever we got to do to get away. You're not going to get us. When I tell you, that scene gave me so much life, because I was like, that is how we act. We are not about to let you, not about to get us. We might not win, but we're gonna put up a fight. And baby, when Ronnie was when she started biting that umbilical cord, that umbilical cord was trying to suck her back in, oh my God, it was everything, everything. And clearly Ronnie's fear, it has to do with her mother. Okay, so apparently, I think it was said that her mother, passed away when Ronnie was born. Okay, so I think that's just something that has always stuck with her. But honey, when Mama was trying to pull Ronnie back in, Ronnie was like, "Not today." Okay. So you got all this stuff going on in Derry, right? And again, Ronnie's dad is being accused of what has happened to these kids, okay? And Ronnie, her and Lily were there at the movie theater, so they both got to see what actually happened. And I'm gonna tell you something, I was surprised that that was actual. I thought it was gonna be like a nightmare or a dream. But honey, those kids are chopped up and screwed, okay? But anyway, um, Lily, she ends up going to a mental institution because she does tell the truth at first. And so, in order for her to get out, because she just does not like being there, she has to spin some yarns. Okay. And a police chief, he is basically trying to get her to admit that Ronnie's dad is indeed the person who harmed these kids, which he absolutely did not. So, nonetheless, Lily has to, like I said, she has to start spinning some yarns, and she ends up getting out of mental institution, which causes a rift between her and Ronnie, because Ronnie was like, my dad did not do that. Why, he's being locked up, he's being blamed and accused of something that he absolutely did not do. And of course, Lily's like, no one want to believe me, and this and that and the third. So eventually they have to realize that they're gonna need to work together. Okay, two heads are better than one. So they end up meeting up with Will, and Will has a friend, Rich, and they are basically trying to, because Will is like this little, he's like a bookworm. Okay, he loves to read, he loves science and things like that. So they are trying to get Will to go along with them, and they basically have to let him know what has happened. And of course, Will is like, I don't really believe that stuff, but if they believe it, it is what it is, fine. But they need him to go along with them to take some photos, to so they can get them developed, so they can prove that Ronnie's dad is indeed not the culprit. But of course, things are not going to go that way.
It's not them, it's something pretending to be them, to scare us. The right question would be, what in the hell is it?
It's an oricha.
What?
You know, an evil spirit. Well, they're not all evil, but this one sounds pretty bad.
So, honey, they end up going to a graveyard. And when I tell you, I was like, y'all playing with fire. And indeed, they did get burned. Okay. They got the photos, but they still got burned in the process. But listen, so this gave me so much. I was yelling at the television screen on this particular part when that cemetery started to break up into pieces and they got on them bikes. Honey, when Will went into that mausoleum and he wanted to make sure that I was like, what are you? I was yelling at the TV. I was like, what are you doing? Get out of there. Like, oh my God, the whole cemetery, it was crazy. The whole scene was crazy. And when they got those pictures, I was like, now, is anyone else going to be able to see what's in these photos? That was the first thing that clicked. And of course, we later on know that absolutely not. When they presented those photos to the police chief, it was completely opposite. The one thing that was still in the photos that the children were able to see as well as the adults were somewhat of a silhouette of Pennywise. But outside of that, I was like, this is not going to be beneficial to them. It absolutely is not. And I'm telling you, I I was just like, I would have been more surprised if they were able to see all the pictures of the ghosts and the spirits or whatever that they had taken in that cemetery. That would have surprised me more than the photos being completely different for the adults' eyes. So, I was just like, it wasn't necessarily a waste of time because Will and Rich got to see exactly what was going on, what Ronnie and Lily had, expressed to them about, what they were going through. So, in that aspect, it was good. But now it's just like this thing is going to be coming after everybody.
Dios te salve María, llena eres de gracia. Dios te salve María, llena eres de gracia.
Rich, you're just repeating yourself.
What is that? What are you saying?
The Santa Maria, the prayer for the dead.
Honey, Lily's friend. Okay, listen. Sometimes when some of these episodes start off, you can kind of figure out how it's gonna go. So when they were in science class, for me personally, when they were in the science class talking about the snails and stuff, I was like, okay, somebody about to get sucked up by a huge gigantic snail. I was not expecting this. Okay. And when I tell you I felt no ways, because Lily's so-called friend, she wanted to be popular and hang with the girls. This is the little girl that Rich has a crush on, by the way. And so when she was about to set Lily up, but her conscience stepped in, okay, because Lily was her friend or is still her friend. She felt guilty. And so she was going to go ahead and confess to Lily that these girls were trying to set her up, make it seem like this boy liked her. Anyway, Ma'am's eyes pops completely out of her glasses. This was so gross. It was just, I mean, and that's another thing about this show, is very gory, which does not bother me. Okay. It just adds to it. But this was crazy. Her eyes bugging out like this, and then her cutting one of them off. I was like, oh my God, they're gonna blame Lily. I just knew she was gonna end back up in a mental institution. But fortunately enough, the young lady, I forget her name, she remembered that she is the one who damaged her own eye. Okay, she tried to cut off her eye because they was popping out. So I was so glad that Lily was not accused of harming her, because when everything ended up happening, we saw Lily laying on top of her with the scissors in her hand, and it looked as if she was trying to cut the girl's eyes out. But that was not the case. But honey, when I tell you Pennywise is not sparing anybody, he is not. But for me, I was wondering why she became one of the victims of Pennywise. this girl here, because again, she wasn't really hanging out with Lily. She had no clue of what was going on, not necessarily, again, Lily had went back into the mental institution, so of course there was some talk around the school about that. But I was like, why did Pennywise choose her, to attack at this particular point? Because again, she really didn't have any association with what Will, Rich, Lily, and Ronnie were, dealing with at the moment. So, honey, Maddie miraculously pops back up, right? Now, if you are familiar with Pennywise, okay, if you watch the movie, the mini series from the 90s and the recent movies, part one and two, you know that if Pennywise get a child, he ain't giving them back, okay? So the fact that Maddie crawled his decrepit looking behind out of that tent and these kids fell for it was crazy, okay? However, they wanted something to believe in. Okay. Ronnie was so glad to see him. She was like, we got to go to the police. We got to let them know that my dad didn't take you. Lily was like, yeah, and that way they'll know that Ronnie's dad is innocent and all this stuff that's going on has nothing to do with him. And Maddie was like, no, I'm not going to no police. I don't want anybody to know I'm here. He starts telling this story about how Pennywise sleeps in the daytime and hunts at night. And I'm like, no, dear, Pennywise hunts at any time of the day. Okay. Wherever he is, whether it's daylight or not. Okay. So, Maddie you could tell that this boy is the walking dead. I'm sorry. Like, I was like, something is off about him. And I'm going to tell you what really sealed the deal for me was when he said that he would rather go back into the sewer than go deal with his abusive father. I was like, yeah, something is not right. Nonetheless, the kids, they wanted to believe that this was actually Maddie, and, they started asking him about the other kids, about Teddy and the girl and everything. And he was like, he tells them that one of the boys is still alive. He was like, yeah, he's still alive, but he is he just doesn't speak. He just kind of stares around, but he's still down there. And so Lily and the crew are like, okay, well, can you take us to him? We want to make sure that we can rescue him as well. So if we show the police that we have both you and him, then they will be more willing to kind of, let Ronnie's dad go. But honey, it was just a bunch of mess. Okay. This box right here appears to be of some significance to Dick's character. So we have this moment where Dick is in the sewer and he ends up going underwater. And then when he comes to, as far as catching his breath, he ends up in this bathroom. And, he gets out of the tub that's full of water, and his grandmother comes into the bathroom and he is speaking to her telepathically. And while he's sitting there talking to his grandmother, his grandfather enters the bathroom with that box. And I was like, okay, so what is the significance of this particular box in this moment? Because again, we are still learning what certain people's fears are and why they've had some type of interaction with Pennywise. After Dick snaps out of whatever trance he was in, we see the box that his grandfather was holding on the floor. Okay, the box is ajar, and we see this glowing coming from the particular box. And I'm like, okay, so what is this? Is this his soul? Are these his dreams, nightmares, fears, what have you? What exactly is this inside the box? And, I was just like, this is kind of, not making sense right now. And so my daughter mentioned to me that it kind of ties into the movie Dr. Sleep. And I remember in the movie Dr. Sleep when that little boy was afraid of the woman who was always in the bathtub. I take it upon myself to go check out Dr. Sleep, right? So in this moment, the little boy from the Shining House Hotel, whatever you want to call it, he's talking to the black guy. And, the black guy, only the little boy can see him. So the black guy is talking to him and he's saying to the little boy, he was like, um, when I was a kid, my grandfather was very abusive. He terrified me. He was very abusive to me and my grandmother. And I'm like, wait a minute, is this Dick? Is this black guy Dick? Because we just saw that happen in Welcome to Derry. And again, we are trying to figure out exactly what that is in that box and what does that mean to Dick, you know what I'm saying, that actual box. So he's talking to the little boy, and he's telling the little boy that, you know, since he was so afraid of his grandfather, he and his grandmother, he said, my grandmother taught me a trick. And he pulls out this box and he shows it to the little boy. And he tells the little boy, I want you to build one of these in your mind. He said, because as long as you're able to basically put your fears away, the person that scares you won't be able to get to you anymore. And, again, the little boy has this thing about this old, decrepit woman who always appears in the bathtub when he is trying to go to the bathroom. And, he's petrified of this woman. So in this moment, the black man is telling him, hey, you need to build one of these boxes in your mind. That way she can't bother you anymore. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is Dick. Like, this must be an older version of Dick, this old black guy, because there's no way those two stories are that similar. And we see him with this box. But anyway, later on in the movie Dr. Sleep, the little boy, he gets ready to go into the bathroom. He's facing his fear. And he walks into that bathroom and he closes that door, and we see this box open up. And once it closes, it's like that was it. Like he was no longer afraid, of that woman. And she pretty much just dissipates. And we don't necessarily see her again, I don't think. If I recall, I think that box situation comes back up at the tail end of the movie Dr. Sleep. But nonetheless, I'm wondering if this older gentleman in Dr. Sleep is actually Dick, and we're getting the younger version of Dick in Welcome to Derry. Again, the monsters. Okay, like this thing was so freaking creepy. Okay, so this is the general as a little kid. This is when we got a little bit of he and Rosie, the native woman's background. And, we got to see him at a circus early on in the episode. And he sees this really creepy, crooked looking man. And honey, he goes into the forest, and that crooked, creepy man is there and he is ready to get at him. Okay. So we get to see them in their history with Pennywise being in the town of Derry, right? But we also got to see in this particular episode was like this artifact, amulet, whatever you want to call it, that clearly it hinders Pennywise, like he is afraid of it. So any uh, monster or whatever form that Pennywise is in, whatever fear that has come to fruition, it does not mess with that particular artifact.
Down with the clouds.
Now they live down here with the clown. Duck and cover kiddos.
So, honey, the way them kids was running and booking up out of that doggone sewer as they should, they done left poor Lily behind. Lily done splashed and fell under the water, honey. When I tell you, I was like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen? I am so glad that she found that artifact under that water. Or should I say Pennywise spotted it, okay? Because we saw how he bagged up and pulled out. Okay, he was not about to play around with that thing. But let me say this about the whole sewer situation in this last episode. It really, really bothered me that the dad, that Leroy, like, your wife is not in that sewer. And I get it. All of these men are going down there, have no idea what is in store for them. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't know what they're looking for. They don't know that they mind about to start playing tricks on them. But Leroy, you've already somewhat experienced this, right? So when he saw Charlotte walk in the sewer, you knew your wife was not there. And I get it. He was like telling his friend, hey, you're gonna start seeing some things, you're gonna be hallucinating, it's not real, it's not real. But when his friend, told him, when the kids ended up showing up, because we know that the kids are actually there. Of course, Leroy had no idea, but and his friend tried to pull back the weapon, and he ended up unaliving his friend. Oh, I was so upset about that. That really, really bothered me, because it's like, I get it. He doesn't know what's real in the moment, Leroy. But I'm like, you just couldn't snap out of it. It just irked me so bad. It irked me so bad when he was unalive. I just was not. I wish that didn't happen. But anyway, Lily, she ends up in pretty much in a part of the sewer where there was nowhere else for her to run. And so, honey, we see Pennywise getting ready to chow chow. Okay, like the claws and everything was out. Okay, and he ends up spotting this artifact at the bottom of the sewer. It starts to glow, and I'm wondering where this came from, because again, we got to see it when Rosie and the general were young kids. We saw Rosie with it. I don't know if it's a Native American artifact or if it's something that came whenever Pennywise came from, wherever he came from, for whatever spaceship or wherever Pennywise is from, right? What exactly is this, and why is it so powerful against Pennywise? And for me, I do have the book. I haven't listened to it yet. I have never read it, but I do have it. I'm like, is this in the book? Was this always around? Because this has never been in any of the movies, and it wasn't in the miniseries from the 90s. So I'm curious as to where this artifact came from, and you know is it from the same place that Pennywise is from? You know what I'm saying? Like, where did it come from, and exactly what would it do to him if it actually touched him? Is it going to destroy him completely? It's just interesting. But I'm glad that Lily was able to find it, honey, because if not, she was about to be Pennywise supper. Okay.
Wait. Wait.
Honey, listen, between Vecna from Stranger Things and Pennywise, they around here got all the kids spooked and nervous. Okay, they snatching up everybody and in no particular order. Like, I'm curious as to how much of Pennywise is going to be revealed to Will's parents. We've already seen Leroy have his hallucinations, so he's had somewhat of a run-in with Pennywise. But is it going to roll over to Charlotte? Like, is it going to roll over into the whole Derry? Okay, like, seriously, are we going to actually find out where Pennywise came from? Okay. Like, who is the progenitor of this monstrosity? Like, seriously, is it Dr. Frankenstein? Did he come from a spaceship? Like, where did he come from? Was he an experiment in a lab? I don't know. I'm just saying, or did he just manifest completely out of fear? Like, I would like the answer to that, and mainly because of that amulet or artifact, whatever you want to call it. How and why is does that have such a it holds weight over Pennywise? You know what I'm saying? Like, he can't F with it, pretty much. And I'm wondering why. Like, where did that come from? And how did they know about it? And I'm wondering if we're gonna get more background from Rosie, Rose or Rosie, whatever her name is, the native lady, about it, because we saw her with it first. So it's gonna be interesting. I cannot wait to see how the rest of this season plays out. I cannot wait to see what other creatures we're going to be introduced to, through these children's fears or whatever. It's going to be interesting. And, we shall see. We shall see. Well, that is all I have for you guys. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe to my channel. Thank you to all my subscribers. I really appreciate your support. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.